Yes, there's a little notification that says this meeting is being live.
Yes, that's promising.
So I think it's working.
I think we're good.
Yes, there's a little notification that says,
Yeah, cool. Okay, we're live. Hey.
Exactly. I can see
It's
it. We're
it's
here.
like magic. I just do it so effortlessly. All right, everyone. So this is very exciting. I'm just going to bring up all of my notes, but welcome to our monthly book club. And we've got a book that everyone's been talking about a lot in the group this month, and we're very excited to have Courtney on. But first of all, I'm just going to say that Kyra is sitting in for Belinda today because Belinda's father passed away. So I just really I'm going to get emotional during this book club. Just let it be known that I'll probably be howling because we'll be talking about grief, and we'll be talking about grief through poetry and through fiction, and how we feel about the book. And everyone knows that I'm on my own grief journey, and then our darling Belinda lost her dad a couple of days ago. So let's just keep her in our hearts, and everyone send her love. And, she knows she has the support of the Book Queens, and we'll be back when she's ready. And in the meantime, her and she actually read the book, and we met up in the State Forest the other day and had a chat about it, and she really loved it too. So she'll probably come back on and watch this later. But tonight we have Courtney Peppernell here with the last poem. And I came across this book. Well, it was sent to me by Jasmine, who's your publicist. And I thought it was fantastic, such a great premise. And only then did we go back and we had a look at your credentials as a poet. And, we were absolutely blown away by how much you've achieved as a writer, actually. So let me give you a little intro. I'm sort of doing all the tech. Normally, Belinda would be doing the intro while I'm
Oh,
just
okay.
admitting all these people here. But anyway, they're all in, so I'm going to do an intro. And give a shout out, Courtney, if any of this is dated or wrong. Okay. So, Courtney Peppernell is an internationally best-selling author known for her poetry and storytelling. Her poetry books, including the Pillow Thoughts series, have resonated with readers around the world, selling millions of copies and being translated into multiple languages. That's quite an achievement. Blending themes of love, healing, and self-discovery, all things I love. Courtney's work has made a lasting impact in the poetry and contemporary literature space. She lives on the South Coast, down near the Gong, with her wife, and spends her days writing and hangs out with her beloved dogs and chickens. I got to say, that sounds
Oh,
like a
true.
very cool life. Passionate about the power of storytelling, she hopes to continue creating work that fosters connection and healing for years to come. So she's here tonight to talk about her debut novel, The Last Poem, a heartfelt exploration of grief that follows a celebrated poet as she escapes her life and moves to a small town where no one knows her. So we're thrilled to have you here. Welcome, Courtney.
Thank you. Thank you
Welcome,
for having
Courtney.
me. And all correct, except I want to add ducks. So maybe I'll have to
Ducks.
update my bio when I finally get the ducks.
That's very cool. So I'm just going to keep admitting people while Kyra takes
Exactly.
over
Well,
here.
I will do. Exactly. Well, Courtney, I know we have some fans of your poetry in our book club, and I think actually my daughter is amongst them as well. In fact, I found a copy of one of your books on her book.
Oh, wonderful. That's
But we also have a lot of members who are thrilled to be learning about you for the first time. And I think I guess your novel is going to be a wonderful way for you to broaden your readership and kind of introduce readers to poetry and poetry to novels. So can we, to help us get to know you better, maybe you could tell us a little bit about your journey about becoming such a successfully published poet with such an ardent fan base.
Yeah, well, I think, I suppose I've told the story a lot over my career. I've been doing this now for about 10 years, but every time I tell it, it sounds wild that it even happened in the first place. I worked in insurance to start off with. That's where I was. I was working in
That's great.
yeah, so I was just typing away all day, every day, doing motor and home insurance. So yeah, I started there, and then, I thought to myself, I wanted to be a writer. I was in creative writing groups when I was younger, and I loved it. And that's, what I wanted to do with my life, I suppose. But I wasn't too sure how to go about doing it. And I guess it was right around when self-publishing sort of started to take off. A lot of independent authors were rising. And so I gave that a go, and I self-published a novel. And I had sort of a blog that I was working on, and I sort of gained a readership through that. And that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to continue releasing novels. And sometimes I can be a little chaotic. I want to do everything at once. And I was getting a little bit impatient with the next novel I was writing. And on my blog, I'd sort of written a lot of poetry and a lot of affirmations and thoughts and things like that. So somebody had said to me, "Oh, you could put this in a book." And I thought, "Oh, okay, I'll do that." So I created a book called Pillow Thoughts, and I started by self-publishing that. And then it was around Christmas time, and I woke up one morning and I had all these messages on my phone from some of my friends saying, "Oh, this DJ duo, the Chainsmokers, have put your poetry all over their social media pages." And I didn't even know who they were. And so I started looking into it. And from that point, it just blew up. And 2 months later, I had a US publisher writing to me saying they wanted to buy the rights to Pillow Thoughts. So I did that, and then I
What a
started working
dream.
in
See the
insurance.
shaking head going, wow, what a
Yeah,
dream.
amazing. Yeah.
So yeah, I started there, and then, I've slowly built it over, the last 10 years. And I didn't expect to be in poetry, but I suppose it's brought me just so much joy in community building. So yeah, it's been a real sort of journey that I never expected.
Well, I'm so interested to hear that you did start with a novel. So now you've circled back to that. So,
Yeah,
Mm.
I'm really happy that I'm sort of adding novels back on, because that's where I started. And I think it's all storytelling, really. I always say poetry is storytelling. So I'm really, I guess, just doing it in a longer form, I suppose. They're very different. But yeah, I'm glad to be sort of back in the fiction world.
So the last poem is being pitched as your debut, but
Mhm.
you have these other novels. So have they been picked up by a trad publisher or?
No, I took them down because I was like, oh my God, this is so embarrassing. I was so young when I wrote these. But I've just re-released the second one I wrote.
Mm,
It's called Keeping Long Island. And I did that because as I've been talking about the novel, I've been sort of joking around saying, oh, I was embarrassed by my earlier works. And a lot of people have reached out and sort of said, why? Because that's where you started. And
yeah.
it shows you where you started and who you are now, and you should re-release them and put them
Mm,
out to the world. Yeah, and it really got to me in a way, because I thought, yeah, why am I taking these down and sort of
mm.
silencing the characters, I suppose. These
oh, you might be inspiring me. I've tucked mine away too.
I know. I just think someone out there resonated with it originally,
Mm.
and that's yeah, someone out there today can also resonate with it. So they should be out in the world. So you should put them.
Mm. I know that many of our readers have read the last poem, but for those people who haven't, give us the elevator pitch. Just the brief, not the Burj in Dubai, just a normal elevator pitch.
Well, I'm still working on my elevator.
Yeah.
So it follows Ren, who is a poet, and tragically, Ren's fiance dies in a car accident. So she moves to a small town in the mountains of Colorado and joins a grief group. So she learns how to heal, and create these connections with other people also going through grief too.
Mm, mm,
Learns to love again and love herself again.
mm. Yes, and the grief group, what's the name of the grief group?
Um, it's called Misery Loves
Yeah, I
Company.
know.
I love it. It's so great. That's
I
so
love that
cool.
too, actually. I know. And it is true, isn't it? Because grief is on one hand like really isolating, but then it can be shared and it is, yeah.
Mm,
Anyway, we'll
mm,
get into all of that.
mm.
So, what was the reason then you wanted to write this novel at this time, and where did the inspiration come from?
Look, honestly, when I sort of traditional publishing, I was working with different agents and, I had my publisher in the US and then I was sort of meeting with publishers here in Australia and I really didn't know, I guess, what I wanted to have as my debut story.
Mm,
I sort of had three different ideas, but something, my sort of team around me said you should try to do something that connects your poetry readers into the fiction,
Mm,
I suppose.
mm,
So I knew how to write about grief. That might sound silly, but I knew how to write about grief. I almost felt comfortable writing about grief. So that's sort of where I guess the story came from is what can I talk about that I know that I'm comfortable talking about. But also there was a moment. I think I was in New York and we'd organized, it wasn't a book signing, but we'd organized a meet and greet. And I was in a room full of, some of my readers who had all connected over the poetry books. And it was very surreal. And I stopped for a second and I was looking at all the different kinds of people in the room. And I thought, these people might not be in a room together if it weren't for these poetry books. And I sort of thought, what else connects people in that way? And it was grief, because I think grief brings all different walks of life together. So that's really where it was kind of born from. And then I spent, 6 months to a year sort of shaping the story. And
it's a wonderful premise. Yeah. Yeah.
mm, mm.
Congratulations. I think you
oh,
pulled it
And
off very well.
it's a great way to actually connect your two worlds into one. Um, and I guess, from a publisher's perspective, branding as well. But it really is. And you do write about grief really well. So while I was reading the novel, I took a bit of a deep dive into some of your poetry and was reading among other things, Pillow Thoughts. And one of my favorites was this poem. Um, there were many things I found after you were gone. Your favorite book, your watch and necklace too, all your clothes and shoes, a birthday card from years ago, coasters from all the cities we had been to. And yet the part of me I could not find is who I was when I was with you. You are gone and I am too. Oh my God. Makes me really emotional. Okay. So, I mean, I'm on 10 months ago, my long-term ex-partner died and, left me his kids. And so I'm going through it, but I've been trying to it's sort of express to people how I've changed. And that's not a bad thing, but the person I was prior to this happening in my life has gone, and you just nailed it in a poem. I read that and I went, oh, she gets me. This is what I've been trying to say to people. That yeah, so I read this piece that you wrote in Ramona magazine, You said, as a poet, I knew grief. Poetry trained me to capture a story in a single line or stanza or beat, to distill a feeling until it felt recognizable. A poem can hold a moment up to the light. The exact second you realize someone is gone, the suddenness of missing them, the way love and loss can exist in the same breath. Poetry lets you freeze that feeling. It allows you to hold time still. Writing a novel asked me to do the opposite, especially writing a novel with grief at its center. It asked me to stretch my instincts to move through time. Talk to us about that.
So I think for me with poetry, it happens quite quickly when I'm putting a book together, but I've sat in the feeling for so long.
Mm,
Whereas with the novel, I'm in the novel, but there's these other characters.
mm,
It's like I have to think in the way that those characters would think,
mm-hmm,
which is really a strange feeling because in the end, it really did feel like these characters were real. Henry, Wren, Olivia
mm,
Emerson, Winnie. It felt like they took on kind of a life of their own, whereas with poetry, it's very personal to me. I do like to write about my readers' experiences with poetry because I've received I get so many messages, just these beautiful stories of people. They just pour their hearts out, and I really liked this idea of bringing their stories into my poetry so that they would read about it.
mm,
But yeah, the novel writing and the poetry writing, they have crossovers, but they're very different. I do feel like I was stretching out the feeling in the novel, like I was sitting with it for longer, if that makes
mm, mm,
so
uh,
yeah, and in the end, it ended up being, I would ask myself, oh, how would Henry approach it?
mm,
And Henry would approach it in a completely different way to the way that Ren would approach something.
mm,
It was very interesting. And it's my grief, but then these characters have their own grief.
mm,
I'm trying to
mm.
relate to a character that I've made up in my head. So it's
Oh,
very,
yeah, but they're real.
yeah.
They're just coming through you. That's all.
Yeah, and I think there are bits of me in each of the characters. I've sort of dealt with my own grief through, my lifetime and it can be extremely isolating. And just from reading that poem, that's half the reason why I do it because you can read something in the world and think that I'm understood because grief
Mm,
is so
mm,
isolating. You don't feel understood. You
mm,
feel so alone. So just
mm.
having that ability to read something and even
Not
just
only I'm understood, but sometimes like for me, I knew that was how I was feeling. But other times people, and I guess this is where a younger audience, Kyra was saying her daughter and her daughter's friends read this. You're giving voice to things that maybe they don't quite understand. And I think that's really important too to go, oh, yeah, that's what I'm feeling. That's what I mean.
yeah, absolutely. And I think that that was perhaps why Pillow Thoughts ended up being, and still is what it is, just because of the simplicity of,
Mm,
they're these big, powerful feelings, but the simplicity of the way that they're said, and people can automatically say, I know what you're talking about. I've felt that
mm,
before. And I
mm,
think that that's what's so powerful about poetry itself, and even just a line in a book. I was the last book I finished it a couple of days ago. She's an independent author. Her name's Hayley Cass, and she writes queer romance fiction. But I was reading her latest uh, story, and it's about a country music singer, and she was kind of just explaining about what it is to have all this pressure on you when you do something really, really amazing and you're tr constantly trying to live up to it. And
yeah.
I thought, that's like me. I'm always trying to live up to pillow thoughts, when I don't really need to because every book and project is so vastly
Mm,
different.
mm,
So it is really powerful when you read something in a book and you just kind of think, yes, that helps me.
Absolutely.
absolutely. I'm going to just have a quick look and see. And please do put comments down. I'm going to have a look at the comments here, and then while Kyra asks another
Yeah.
question,
All
I'll
right.
go over to
Interrupt me as you
YouTube
need
and have a
to.
look at some comments. But
No, sounds
um,
good.
I
Sounds
love so everyone's saying hello. Some beautiful messages here to Belinda. And I love, Lauren says, I love how everyone found a different theme. As someone with a chronic illness, it's very encouraging.
mm.
Yeah. Um,
Shall I ask? You got more? Do you want me to ask
no, because
questions?
I've got to look at my phone to go onto YouTube.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll kick in now. Yeah.
Yeah,
Very good.
yeah.
All right. All right. So I was going to ask you about the setting of the novel. So you've set it in Evanston, Colorado, a small American town that feels somehow very recognizable. And why did you want to set the story in America? And do you have any actual personal connection to a small town there?
Yeah, I've because my publisher was based in the US all this time. They're out of Kansas City, Missouri. So I've been there a few times. But I've traveled back and forth to the States, and I have, friends in different pockets. But I love Colorado. Like Colorado is just one of my
Mm,
favorite places. And actually, it was the first trip or international trip my now wife and I took. We went to America. I had things that I was doing over there for work. But I wanted to go to this place called Durango. So it's about
mm,
six hour drive from Denver. And we stayed there and we did horseback riding, and it was beautiful. But one of the main reasons was I wanted to go up into some of the small towns in the mountains. And I wanted to get the steam train. They have a really old steam train from Durango to a town called Silverton.
mhm.
It's a very old mining town. I didn't realize that it was their off season. So we did the train, but it wouldn't go all the way into Silverton. We got cut off. So the next day I was like, I've got to go here. I want to go here. So we jumped in a car and we drove up there. And when you're going through like mountains, and there's no guardrail on the side of the road. You can fit maybe one car, if that. There's like little warning beeping stuff happening on the radio saying, warning, possible avalanche, and just like you're just going all the way up here. So we're sort of freaking out a little bit. Anyway, when we got there, Silverton was just a dream. It's the cutest town. It's like a one main road, and those different colored buildings on the front cover of the last poem, that is Silverton. They have all different colored
Mm.
buildings. So it just became Evanston. I was like, this is it. This is where the story is set.
I think for me as the reader, I think you settle into it very quickly and you feel very comfortable. And I think as a place to go for people dealing with their grief, it was a place of comfort.
Oh,
And you bring
yes.
a lot of
Mm,
comfort into the novel, and that
mm,
includes comfort food, which I think is a perfectly legitimate way of finding
yeah.
comfort. And obviously, your characters think the same. So, yeah, I think that was really well done, actually.
I agree. I think readers really love to find themselves in small towns or in
Mm,
tight-knit communities.
mm.
And they sort of settle in quickly to that story. And actually, anyone who's watching and has read the book, tell us what you thought of the town. Just pop in the
Mm.
comments there. But yeah, I agree. There's a kind of like oh, I
Yeah.
could move here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I could too, and I having the center of the story as the library was so important. Libraries are just so important to communities.
Yeah.
They are a hub for the community. So I really wanted to center it, at the library. But funnily enough, I towards the end, for those who've read it, I won't say too much because it's sort of not a spoiler, but it's sort of a full circle moment for one of the characters. But there's a gift store. It's called Merrill's in the book. But it's based on a gift store in Silverton, and I went in there, and it was one of these sort of wacky kind of places where there's a million different things happening. And I walked in, and the person behind the register, uh, myself and Claire's, my wife, were looking at all different things, and they said, "Oh, it had First Nations artwork that they were doing." We said, "What's this? This is very Australian. Like, who's here doing this artwork?" And they said, "Oh, that's Edith. She's upstairs. Do you want to meet her? She's also Australian." And I said no, and Claire said yes at the same time. Because I thought, why would we want to go upstairs? This is a trick. But we did go upstairs. And we met Edith, and she was from Queensland originally. She'd lived in Silverton for 70 years. She was well into her 90s, and she was playing
Wow.
the guitar. And we sort of went up and said, "Hi, we're from Australia too." I think she probably thought, "What are you doing in my house?" But yeah, just little things like that that I've experienced. I think it just shows, or me anyway, how I suppose inspiring life can be. You always wonder when an author's writing a story how much of the things that they've experienced end up being in the story, even if it's
Mm,
something like so like little.
mm.
So yeah, I just sort of
No,
want.
there was a lot of authenticity. And I think you even cast Edith as a character in Absentia, didn't you? Wasn't there an Edith there? Somebody's wife, husband, wife, sorry.
Ah, I
What's his name? There's definitely Edith is anyway, doesn't
I
matter.
think there's an Edith too. Yeah.
Possibly. I might have actually no, yeah. Gil's wife. I was
Yes,
wait, what
yeah,
did I think of that? Yeah, I use the name because it's a
yeah.
little. I like leaving Easter eggs, even though, as you can see, I
Yeah.
forget what Easter eggs I.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We know that. You move on to another project and then
Yeah.
someone says something from a previous novel and you go, what?
What?
Yeah. So you've taken on the challenging form of an ensemble cast here. So some of the characters, there's the best-selling author poet Ren. She's grieving her fiance and ends up there where she is renovating an old house. There's teenage Emerson, who was a gymnast before a car accident. There's 70-year-old Winnie. Olivia, who's grieving her mother, who was a well-known newsreader. One of my faves is Henry, the librarian and the grief group's leader, who couldn't save his twin brother from cancer, so he tries to support everyone else. So each of the characters, and there's a few other characters as well, but each of them, they're so different. How did you go about juggling that and managing that? So many different points of view from these different characters. And particularly because then you write a piece of poetry
Mm.
at
Oh,
the end from
yeah,
each of them.
with great difficulty. When I wanted to do different points of view, so one of my favorite authors is Jodi Picoult.
Mm.
Hmm.
Just I grew up reading a lot of her books, and they're obviously set from different points of view. And it always amazed me at how the the characters were all written by the same author, but they were
Mm,
different. Like you didn't even feel like you were almost reading the same author because the characters had such a distinct voice. Um, and I loved that. And something else, I really appreciate about Jodie is when she's writing these sort of books, these characters, no matter what they do, they're so well researched. You
Mm.
feel as though they are that,
mm,
you're writing about a firefighter or a lawyer or what have you. You feel as though they are that because of how well researched it is. So I definitely took on the challenge because
mm.
it's my first, I guess traditionally published novel. So I took that challenge on, and I wanted to make sure each of the voices were distinct enough, but they were all connected
Yeah.
somehow. So yeah, I think again, it really came back to me imagining myself as that character.
Mm,
And I found imagining myself as that character helped me to make all their voices sound different, I suppose.
mm,
Um,
mm.
And
I thought you did a great job, and it is really difficult to do that actually as an author, and you did a wonderful job at that. But then to actually write a piece of poetry from
as
all of them, so I was like reading, each piece from each character at the end, just going, okay, this is actually really quite different. And I don't know a great deal about poetry other than how it moves me, really. But yeah, so I read it a couple of times and I was like, oh yeah, no, she's she's done it. Like each of these is different. And I don't know how, I don't know what it is. I just know that each character's voice is coming through here.
Well, I guess poetry for me has always been about expressing myself. So when I was writing the poetry from the characters, again, it came back to how would Henry express himself? What would he
Mm,
write about? Would he do a rhyme? Would he write prose? Would he,
mm,
Olivia doesn't isn't a poet and doesn't really know how to write, I guess that. And she's a reporter and a bit more, guy,
mm,
I suppose. So I wanted her, and she's always was always late to the meetings and different things like that. So
mm,
I wanted her to approach it as not as maybe serious as the others, but her heart is still kind of there because of
mm,
so yeah, it was different sort of having to, I suppose, write it from all the different characters. But the Winnie's poem is special because Winnie, that particular character, is based off my own grandmother.
mm,
So I sort of approached her when I was writing that poem and I said, lay all your life lessons on me. So we kind of came up with different things and that just became something Winnie said in her.
mm.
That
That's
is very
special.
special. Yeah, exactly. How wonderful.
Mm,
Um,
mm,
well, maybe we can talk a little bit about process and what your working day looks like. And, do you approach your poetry the way a writer would approach a novel with a set number of hours or a word count? Or do you wait for inspiration? Where do you write? Do you have home office? What does it look like? Where does the magic happen and how?
I do have a home office, but I don't know, it's hard. Sometimes I'll go through different times where I'll feel more comfortable writing in my office, or sometimes I want to write, sort of at my dining room table, or sometimes I might go to a cafe. I'm a bit of a homebody though, so the cafe is quite rare. I like to be at home, with my dogs and my slippers on. But my process, I think. It's become more structured as I've gone along in my career. Originally, when I started the poetry, I was still, young. I was in my early 20s, mid 20s, and everything about it was just kind of just all over the place, like
mm,
chaotic. And I'd sort of, have a notebook and I'd be writing down thoughts, and then I'd sort of have an idea about how to put them all in a collection and sort of go from start to finish and piece it all together, and write it all over the place. And as I've grown up, I've sort of realized that that makes the editing stage a massive headache, for me at least. So yeah, I'm a bit more structured. So I tend to try and write for at least 3 to 4 hours, or not, maybe not writing, but just doing some sort of work. And I honestly try to do that Monday to Friday.
mm,
And I walk a lot. Because walking, I'm either listening to a podcast or I'm listening to an audiobook or I'm just not listening to anything and I'm just letting my brain
Mm.
bounce it.
mm,
But yeah, I think I try to keep it within the 3, 4 hours, and if it's not happening and I'm getting frustrated, or I walk away, because there's nothing worse than sitting there forcing yourself to, you know, do something. It's not authentic then because you're just getting more and more frustrated. So I
mm,
think a lot of authors, and especially young people who want to sort of do writing and be authors, there's nothing wrong with walking away and stepping away from a little bit.
mm.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So Yeah, so I went and had a cup of tea with Belinda a couple of days ago. We went down to the Cumberland State Forest and there's a cafe in there, and I took my dog because he comes everywhere with me. And I love that she's so animal friendly that, she accommodates that. Some friends go, "Oh God, she's bringing a dog again." So, when I had toddlers or something. But so we were talking about, and so I'm throwing this in for her because I'm sure she'll look back on this, but you explore grief and love and the link between the two. And I know this is the part of the story that really touched her, and particularly, what occurred for her losing her father after she'd finished the novel. So that grief and love, they always go together, and you feel grief because you have loved, and that loving takes a measure of courage because grief is so devastating. Um, do you think about both when you're, I don't know, putting this together, whatever it is, whether you're writing the novel or your poetry? Are you thinking about love and grief, or are you just waiting for sort of a light, something to drop?
I think for me, the way that I've always structured my poetry books is there's a reason there's a reason why somebody has picked up that poetry book. Normally, the reason is because they're searching for something and
Mm,
they want to feel understood, they want to feel less alone. Maybe they've gone through heartbreak or, this life-changing, altering event and they're looking for something in that book. And as you go along as the reader, you're sort of reading about this grief and all the things that come with it. But as you mentioned before, you're changed. So you leave that version of yourself at the front of the book and
mm,
kind of go on this journey through it. And in the end, the hope is that you walk away from it new, um,
mm,
because you are new, because you're not going to be that same person you were before the grief, you're this new person after it. And hopefully, by acknowledging that, you can kind of accept that hope and love back again. So it ends with hope and love. And I've always structured my poetry books like that. There's something that's happening, the journey through it, and then you're out the other side.
mm,
And so with the novel, I kind of wanted to have my story run
mm,
along like that too. Maybe not ending necessarily that, oh, everything's better, yippee. Like it doesn't, that's not really how life works. I think
mm.
you always carry the grief. I know I'll always carry like the things that I've sort of been through in my life. I'll always carry it, but that doesn't mean that I can't carry the newness with me as well. Does
Mm,
that make sense?
Yeah.
mm, mm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. There's before Kyra jumps in with the next question, there is a question on YouTube from Karen asking, out of all your poetry, what's your favorite poem?
My favorite poem.
Might be like choosing like a favorite child or a favorite duck. It's like I love them all.
Um, I think maybe not a favorite poem, but I have one of my favorite books, my poetry books that I've written, is All Dogs Are Good.
We're coming to that one. Yeah.
And I actually so in that book, there's a lot of poetry that I wrote about my old shepherd hero,
Mm,
which yeah, I still think about that dog every day. I got him when I was 20, 21. Had no idea about anything, and I just had this dog that I had to look after, and he was with me through these really pivotal moments of my life. So to lose that companion was probably some of the deepest grief that I've
yeah.
ever kind of experienced.
Mm,
So my favorite poems would be of him. There's a poem called The Long Walk Home, and it's just kind of me talking about, uh, our journey, we would walk in the forest a lot together, and he'd always manage to get us back home. So yeah,
That's what I do with my dog all the time.
yeah,
That's
you go.
that's my happy day.
Yeah,
Go for a walk with my dog in the forest. Yeah.
it brings me a lot of
Mm,
comfort and
mm,
helps reset me. Yeah.
that's beautiful.
So, and only share obviously what you're comfortable sharing, Courtney, but are there any experiences in your life that, have shaped you as a writer who explores grief? And, because you did come to writing at a young age. And so, it does take life experience to get there. So I don't know if whatever you're comfortable sharing only.
No, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, you can see it all the way through my poetry books. I don't hold back because I'm like somebody out there has probably gone through something similar, and hopefully in some way it can kind of help. When I was younger, I was quite shy. I found it difficult to sort of fit in, or at least not so much fit in. I think feel as though I belonged, or feel as though my voice mattered, and things like that. So I think a lot of the earlier poetry was sort of a little bit about finding my voice. But definitely through my career, unfortunately, I was married before, and that person, it was a very sort of toxic kind of relationship. There was a lot of emotional abuse in that relationship. That person had an affair that I came to find out. So that, they say divorce is traumatic, and it is.
Mm,
So that absolutely
mm,
it fundamentally changed me as a person. And, again, Jane, when we were touching on that old version of you is gone,
mm,
now you've got this new version. I remember, when I was going through that period in my life, I would say to my mum over and over again, I'm changed, and I'm somebody different, and I'm
mm,
not the same person anymore. And I don't want grief or anger to consume me, or take me away from the things that I can do.
mm,
Um, and she said to me, she was like, it feels like they're a thief because they've robbed you of all this time that you can't get back, but they can't take the rest of your time.
mm,
From that moment, I was sort of like, no, they can't take the rest of my time, so I can kind of shape that. So yeah, I would say that that has been something that's kind of fundamentally
Mhm.
changed me. I've had some difficulties with management. I think it's one of those classic managers take advantage of the artist in like a financial kind of way. So that's been something that's
Yeah.
been really kind of difficult to deal with.
Yeah.
So yeah, I have been definitely shaped by kind of this sort of heartache, but
mm.
there's still so much greatness in the world, I guess. I still
Well,
have to be a
and
writer.
I
Yeah.
think they're always such growing experiences. And I mean, I can relate to one of those toxic young marriages as well. And I think
We
that's
call it the starter marriage
at
here,
the start of
okay?
one. And I'm very grateful for it because it does set you on that path to self-learning and discovery. And yeah, you are changed for it, but changed for the better. And I think that helps you make better choices
Mm.
going forward. And
Yeah.
maybe you don't have those rose-colored glasses so much anymore. And that I think
Yeah.
actually, if I think about it, that was one of the things that, as well as grieving the loss of a relationship, you can sometimes grieve that loss of innocence that occurs after any great loss. That is
Mm,
a divorce or a death. It is a little bit of a loss of innocence, but I think the themes that you have in your book of kind of accepting that, but rebuilding and working forward, I think are very, very powerful and very
mm,
relatable for people. So,
mm,
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely the rose-colored glasses. And I think, yeah, when you kind of deal with that grief and sort of agony, I think, my biggest concern was, oh, I'm not going to be able to write about love anymore. People are going to be
mm.
like, write a love poem. I'll be like, it doesn't exist.
yeah. Yeah. No, I'm so filled with
Thankfully.
female rage. It's like, this is what I'm writing about now.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I love that you write about community as well in this book. I think that's really important and something to remember because I've had a sort of a tendency to isolate myself through the grief and then crawl out of my cave and, go around to everyone I know and love and reintroduce myself. Um, but let's go. Speaking of grief, like you said that you'd lost your dog, a soul animal, and I think we tend to sort of say it in a way that we sort of apologize for just how deep that grief is. But to me, like losing a soul animal is just the most painful thing. It has brought me to my knees losing animals, and I read your poems about dogs. And this one was a standout for me because it is so true of the last 12 months where, um, there will be times in your life where you will reach for a hand and get a paw instead. Oh my God. Oh my God. Like that just nails it. That says everything. That's like, my dog has just looked after me for the last 10 months, a year. He's just been there. He's just, he's been there. So if anything happens to him, I'm just putting it out there now to everyone. Send emergency services,
We'll
okay?
send a puppy, Jane. We'll
Yeah,
send a
no,
puppy.
no, no, no. It's horrendous. So I love how you know, you write about dogs and your poetry about dogs. It's so special. You've got dogs now, have you?
Yeah, so I had Hero. He was, I guess, the first dog I had, in my adult life that wasn't
Mm.
was my family dog. And then while I had Hero, I also had, and I've still got her. She's a Pomeranian something. She was adopted. We're not really sure what what she's crossed with. Maybe a barking machine because she doesn't stop. So that's Dakota. I've still got her. She just turned 9. And then Claire and I, we have a golden retriever, Benjamin, who, yeah, he's the sweetest. He's probably the sweetest dog I've ever had, but there's nothing going on upstairs,
No,
unfortunately.
they're total doofuses though.
Yeah, one brain cell. But I love him. That poem, there's some days, maybe it's a hard day or I'm tired or I've, frustrated with a deadline or something like that. And Ben will often come into the office and he comes in and he'll place his head on my lap as like a
Yeah.
check-in.
Yeah.
And he does it 2 or 3 times a day. Like he checks in and I just think, how can people, I can't remember the name of the author or whether it was anonymously put online, but there's a poem called Just a Dog, or that it's not just a dog. And
Yes, I've heard it.
I
Yeah.
just think that,
Yeah.
they're not just a dog. Like they can't, the fact that they have these feelings and they can pick up on your feelings and
Mm.
be there for you, it's a really beautiful thing to.
I think that there's things that we simply don't understand about communication and connection to animals. And, we're constantly expanding our awareness of understanding. But I just tell everyone now, I'm in this relationship with a dog at the moment, and I mean, I really am. I come home
Yeah,
to him. He's my
yeah,
best friend.
yeah.
We hang out. He's sitting at the door going, at the moment because I've locked him out. He's like, oh.
Yeah, let me in.
Yeah.
Um,
So it's absolutely beautiful. Your poems about dogs, and really anyone who's watching, please, if you're a dog lover, if you're an animal lover, if you've ever lost a pet, go and read these. They're just they're beautiful. They'll really, yeah, have a tissue box beside you. Yeah.
Courtney, if there was something that you'd really like readers to take away from this book in particular, what would that message be?
Honestly, I think in today's, I guess, environment, human connection is so important, particularly between writers and readers. There's just something about humans connecting over
Mm,
books and books that they can relate to and stories that they can relate to. And you see things happening all the time. There's, these literary experiences popping up everywhere where people are doing sort of reading retreats and all this kind of stuff because they're craving that
mm,
in-person connection, or the book clubs, and just having this space where there are other people that you can relate to and connect with.
mm,
And it doesn't have to be much. Sometimes it's just somebody, writing something in a forum about, I loved this book because of this, and then somebody else relating to it because of something that they're going through. And just that one kind of interaction can help someone in the, darkest period of their life. So I think that that's what, these books are, and books in general are trying to build community with everyone.
I
True.
love that. And I do think that there's something really special about book communities because I think in my experience, particularly with Book Queens, but there are some other great book clubs around. Rachel Johns has got one where everyone's really positive.
Yeah.
Like, no one's going to tear you down if they disagree with your choice of book or what you're reading. So I think that people are looking for those communities and positive experiences. And I think readers just generally give that to each other.
Yeah, just that support, I think, when it's like you have.
You're taking photos, Kira.
I
No.
did. Sorry, I was trying to do that
Hold on,
subtly.
I'll just.
Sorry.
That's my best side. No.
I was getting Courtney's best side, and I think they're both her best sides, actually.
So, Courtney, are you writing another novel?
Yes, I haven't finished. I've turned in another round of edits. So
Hmm.
they tend to go through 3 or 4 kind of passes before they get into, I guess, the copy editing kind of stage.
Mm, yeah.
So we're in the second, going into the third, I believe. So much happier with this pass. Took me a long time to get there. I was just about ready to throw it out my window. But yes, I am working on a new novel. So that should be released next year. It's called One More Song, and it's about country music singers. So
Oh, that's good.
That's
a bit of
nice.
mystery, a little bit of romance, but yeah, I like country music, so
Yeah, I like country music too. My son's a musician and yeah, get into a bit of country music sometimes. And do you write lyrics in this new book or?
Yes, so my plan was the illustrator that I've worked with forever, Justin. He does a lot of my book covers, but he's also a musician. He's based in the UK at the moment, but he has a lot of musician friends. So we kind of said, how cool would it be to write an album, like write the album
Yeah.
that the character's writing and then produce that album. So yeah, we're sort of looking at that. I mean, I have no idea how to write music, so that'll be on him, but I can at least write
Yeah.
lyrics.
Yeah, that's cool. That's fantastic. Thank you so much for coming on. I'll just throw out a few comments. There's some comments, of course, there is about dogs. Lauren's dog has, I got my dog Squidgy Muffin. That her name, Lauren, or she just like is a squidgy muffin when I was 21 and we lost him a few years ago. He was 19. Wow, that's
Wow.
amazing. You need to read and totally need to read the poems. You do, but it's hard. It's hard, particularly when you have a dog for that long. And then Melissa goes, "Oh, that's so beautiful," and she gives us a woof. Courtney, thank you. Thank
Thank
you so
you.
much for coming on and sharing your gift and your process and your beautiful book.
Mm.
Um, sorry, I've got my my blurrer on.
Aussie. Mine,
Yeah,
there you go.
yeah,
There you go,
yours is
yeah.
better, Kyra. Thank you. The last poem. It is wonderful. Book Queens next month. We have Mary Lou Stevens coming on with the Hobart Hotel. A great pal of mine. I've done a couple of an event for her at Dimmicks, and this is a great read. So get that one on your to be read list. And in the meantime, if you haven't read Courtney's book, go out and read it, and grab some of her poetry as well, because it's really, really special. Courtney, keep us in the loop for your next book, and yeah,
No,
good
thank
luck with
you.
it
It's
all.
been so great. Everything that you guys do is so important for the community. So thank you. It's been really cool. Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
Lovely
we'll
to
see you
meet you.
soon.
Yeah.
All the
Lovely to
best.
meet you.
Bye.
Okay, all right,
Bye.
Thank
bye.
you.